Here's another guy who often fell victim to this shift when he was batting. Of course, the shift for him involved popcorn for about half the fielders, and the rest of everybody hung out in the infield. Here's Barry Davis.
You know what? I would like to come back at you and say, how dare you say that about me, Tom Forth? But I think it's pretty accurate. So, And speaking of my baseball playing ability, one of our coaches from Fantasy Camp will join us, Frank Catalanotto. I didn't have him as a coach. He coached against me.
Oh,
but
dear.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Frank on the show this week about what he's been doing since baseball, what he thinks of baseball today. And honestly, Tom, the best questions always now come from our OTP insiders, and we had 4 of them on with Frank.
Yep. Yeah, they do. And what a great conversation this week. Lots of stuff to dive into, a lot of fun. Everything from Blue Jays to Team Italy to New York pizza.
Yes, exactly. Great conversation coming up with Frank Catalanotto. We will have Ask Barry Davis, because I think I sent you a question that someone's
we do.
asked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And no poll this week. We dropped the poll once again. I don't know why. We will hear from Raj Sapaya, who's going to talk to us about a Toronto Maple Leaf. And by the way, we are now going to try doing the full video for the whole show. And up next, I'll pay tribute to a couple of people who we've lost over the last week. There's Tom Forth. I'm Barry Davis. This is Out of the Park.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, the first pitch with Barry Davis.
And the first pitch is brought to you by Ballistic Sports. Go to ballisticsports.com. And now that we are doing video of this, Tom, I'm going to let you explain a little bit about what the game is while I go for a prop here, okay?
All right, absolutely.
All right.
So Ballistic Sports is the first ever interactive sport game. It's designed to actually sort of enhance your playing experience, right? So you play it alongside as you're watching the baseball game.
And look what I've got in front of me right now.
Oh my God, we got a board.
Right, I've got the board right
go.
there. And you haven't been in my house in ages, so you haven't seen this, Tom. But
no, I have not.
There's the cool board right there. I'm going to try to hold it steady. I can't actually see. Is it
Yeah,
filling my
pretty
screen?
good.
Yeah,
that's
not
great.
bad, eh? So
Wonderful.
ballisticsports.com. They've got one of these for baseball, for NFL, and hockey, the NHL.
There you go.
So yeah, a lot of fun playing along at home, and hopefully these games will be coming to you sooner rather than later. I'm going to divert a little bit away from the world of baseball for a little bit because this past week, and what's just been seems, I don't know if it's just that I'm getting older, Tom, but it just seems week after week, day after day, I'm hearing about somebody who's passed away, somebody I either knew very well or someone I may have met once or twice. And first of all, Walter Gretzky, God bless him, 82 years old, the king of all fathers, absolutely the king of all fathers. I showed a picture on social media, and just to share the story behind the picture. In this picture, and for those of you watching it, you'll see it up here on the screen. It's Walter Gretzky with myself, my wife, and my son, who was maybe 5 or 6 at the time. And we went down to a Blue Jays game, and because of my job, I had passes. I wasn't working that day, but I brought the family down, and we're watching BP on the field, and we see Walter there, and I thought, oh, I want to go say hi to Walter. So we went and chatted with him for a little bit, and I said, would you mind getting, posing for a picture with me and my son, right? I was, yeah, no problem at all. So my wife was about to take the picture, and he goes, hang on a second. Are you with them? She goes, yeah, I'm his wife. He goes, you need to be in this picture too. He said, he calls over to somebody, excuse me, sir, can you just, can you take a picture of this family with me? And he looked at us and said, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos at home. Some are of me and Wayne, some are of, his mom and him, and some are of, and he goes, we don't have any pictures with everybody in it. So whenever I have the opportunity to actually capture a full family in a picture, I want to do that. And I thought that was just a nice thing. Now, of course, this day and age, everyone does the selfies so they can do it. But back in the day, before cell phones, Tom, we didn't have that ability to go and take selfies.
Yep, exactly. And you know what? It speaks to every story I've ever heard about this gentleman has been that unbelievably warm. I think he's kind of being eulogized as the ultimate Canadian hockey dad, and every story I've ever heard about him. It's just a kind man trying to treat people around him well. And
Mhm.
what an amazing life, what an amazing legacy that he has, not just through his son, but just through how kind and how wonderful he was to everybody he touched for the years he
Mhm.
was here.
Quite a few years ago, when Wayne's mom died, I probably told this story too, but at Sportsnet, I was assigned the job of covering his mom's funeral. And at the time, we felt like trash because Wayne's mom was never in the spotlight. She was never someone that really wanted any attention. And this was all about because it was Wayne's mom. And it felt very intrusive. And I did not like the fact that there were so much members of the media there, including myself. Now, at Walter's funeral, this thing was broadcast on TV. Wayne went up and did a speech. But that was a totally different thing because this was a tribute to Walter, who everyone knew, who was all over the media, who deserves a send-off like that because he was a very public person. And I thought it was very, very classy the way it was done. It was tough to watch Wayne's speech, especially when he broke down. But what an incredible father! What I mean, to have the legacy that he has, man, oh man, it's again, it's sad to see him pass. What a wonderful life he had, though.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So the other one, wow, this one I didn't see coming. It really shocked me, and I'm still pretty stunned. Chris Schultz, who I had a chance to work with starting back around 93, 94, he started coming into the Fan and did a show called Football Sunday with Mike Hogan.
Mhm.
And I produced that every Sunday. And the first thing I remember about Chris Schultz was he was huge, right? Like I could literally walk underneath his legs while he was standing up. But he was the kindest, most gentle human being, other than his handshake. He had a pretty powerful handshake, but just the sweetest man in the world. And how sad and ironic that a man who's known for his heart ends up passing away because his stopped working.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. You know what? Again, it's someone leaving another great legacy. It's someone that you're hearing, you know, everybody that's speaking about him is talking about those things like authenticity, about his giving spirit, about anybody that's involved in the CFL. There's got to be a little bit of passion. There's got to be a little bit of heart in there, because it's not, they're not chasing the bucks.
No.
And he lived his passion, and another voice that'll be missed.
I'm not even a big football fan. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge football fan, but I could listen to him talk about football just because he was able to bring his experience, his knowledge of the game, and the fact that he was there. And he also was able to break it down so he wasn't talking over the heads of people that maybe didn't know football as well. Right. And again, use the word authenticity, and that's just another sign of it. That's just, a really, really good person. So yeah, a real tough week. Two really, really incredible people leaving this earth. So not great. All right, let's change our focus now and talk a little bit about the Toronto Blue Jays. Spring training is underway. Hoo-ha, great to see. No, never mind. Great listening. Never mind. I find it's going to be kind of tough knowing that, you keep hearing about teams that are going to allow a certain percentage of fans in. Most teams are going to have people in the seats this year. And the Jays, they'll have people in the seats too, but they just won't be Toronto Blue Jay fans that live in Toronto. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And when you think of the numbers that they are allowing in some of these ballparks, I mean, that was the total amount you'd get at a Jays game last year. So it wouldn't look abnormal. I don't think the Tampa Bay Rays can draw as many fans as they're allowed to have in. Think about that.
Well,
right?
I mean, if they're letting more than 10 people in, Barry.
Well, that's the thing, right? But, a couple days into camp, and Nate Pearson now is suffering from a groin injury. To me, this guy is a huge part of your future. If we were in September and the Blue Jays were in a pennant race, it would be like, get this guy back on the field as fast as possible.
Yep.
Right now, if he has to miss the start of the season, then he has to miss the start of the season. I'm not rushing this guy. You got a groin injury, you're a pitcher, your groin is a huge part of what you need to throw a baseball.
Yep. Am I the only one? I might be the only one that thinks this, but for me, I'd be far more comfortable with a track record of durability over the 90. Like, I'd take a couple miles off the fastball if he had pitched another 100 innings in the majors over the last year or two, right?
Yeah.
That's what concerns me. I'm heck, if you're going to get injured, better now than in the season.
Oh yeah,
but but
this is the time.
Like it definitely draws some pretty stark spotlights right off the bat on the whole pitching thing. And their 1-2 are Nate Pearson and Yunjin Ryu, and neither of whom are known for their durability.
There are there are a number of guys out there that the Jays could have
Odorizzi just went to Houston.
Yeah, and that is the last of the big name free agents out there. Yeah. So if the Jays are indeed still looking at improving their starting pitching, they're going to have to do it a different way. They're going to have to make a trade. And it wouldn't surprise me. Again, they have a very big farm system. And and speaking of that farm system, just a little teaser that on next week's show, we'll be talking to former Toronto Blue Jay GM Alex Anthopoulos, who has some very enlightening things to say about what he left behind, why he left it behind, and I'll leave the rest for all of you to listen to, because it's very eye-opening, I have to say.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's also hard to, the one slag that people have against him is that he emptied the cupboards, and I don't want to give anything away about that, but I will point to the fact that Atlanta, who he's been with since 2018, has the 5th ranked farm system in the MLB.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? It's all, and that's not slagging Shapiro and Atkins at all, because our farm system is higher, is actually ranked higher than theirs. But he put together an absolutely amazing system very quickly in Atlanta, and to see people slag him for that in Toronto. Well, again, catch the interview. It's a pretty cool take.
Yes, it is. So is today's conversation coming up with Frank Catalanotto. Ask Barry Davis in a moment. But first of all, we're going to talk a little hockey with Raj Sapaya. There's Tom Barry. You're listening to Out of the Park.
Foundation Physiotherapy presents The Medical Room.
And we are joined by our good pal, Raj Sapaya from Foundation Physiotherapy. Of course, I like to refer to it now as 4 locations. The Core, the downtown on Front Street, the East End,
Financial District, City Place, East End.
Okay, and the Zoom
and virtual everywhere.
Yes. How is that? How do you like doing the Zoom appointments?
I don't mind it. I mean, I think there's a lot that can be done over Zoom. I think there's a great combination of sometimes I've seen the person in clinic, because there's a few things I have to do hands-on, but there's a lot of things if you're teaching people exercises, teaching people body mechanics, just talking and educating people. A lot of it can be done over Zoom as well.
Well, Raj, this week I want to talk a little bit about something that Austin Matthews has been dealing with. And I mean, let's face it, it doesn't seem to have had a real negative effect on his game. But Sheldon Keefe, the coach of the Maple Leafs, said this past week that Austin has been dealing with a wrist injury virtually all season long. Now, without knowing the exact specifics about this wrist injury, does it surprise you that someone can be dealing with something like a wrist injury in hockey and still have the success that he's been having? Because you have to think that's a pretty vital part of handling the puck and the stick.
Oh, 100%. So he's probably got some great therapists on his team, right? So obviously, a lot of your power is going to come from your wrist. Austin's probably, if he's still playing, he's probably, going through something called like a repetitive strain injury, where it's just a lot of reps of that same movement is going to create strain through the tissues in the front of the wrist or maybe the back of the wrist, depending on where the injury is. There's probably a few things they're doing. Like, how can a hockey player still play with a wrist injury? Well, a really fit hockey player can use other body parts to help. If he strengthens his shoulder, he strengthens his torso even. A lot of that slap shot, a lot of his stick handling can come from the upper part of his arm, right? So you don't have to really it doesn't have to be all in your hands. It can be up in your shoulder as well. So they're probably helping him retrain and use his shoulder muscles, his core muscles, maybe his elbow and other muscles to help regain for the strength that he lost in the wrist.
You know, are their team doctors going to be, because it seems like to have a star player battling a chronic injury like this, it's surprising that he hasn't missed more time. You know, how careful do you think they're going to be? Because we've spoken before on this show about these repetitive strain injuries actually turning into something worse. You know, so how close do you think they're monitoring the situation?
Oh, they're likely monitoring. He's the star player. They're likely monitoring it very close. So, you know, in my opinion, if the player's still playing and hasn't taken any preventative rest, it's an injury, but it's probably on a lower grade, right? There's lots of grades of injury. We typically, you know, if we're looking at something like a strain or a sprain, we typically grade it from a scale of 1 to 3, right? 1 is your typical, like, it hurts, but I can still move through it kind of thing. It's probably what he's going through. And they're probably managing it right after hockey, right after game, ice, inflammation. Maybe he's getting some injections for pain. Maybe during the game, he's being taped to prevent some overuse, right? And they're probably managing between lines as well. So there's probably a lot of over management, which they need in order to keep him, you know, playing.
Well, thankfully for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he continues to play and continues to do a great job. I know if I had the same injury that Austin Matthews had, I would probably be sitting in a corner crying. That's just who I am. Ross, as always, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Think of what you're saying. We can get it wrong and still think that it's alright. Think of what you're saying. We can work it out and get it straight. Don't say goodnight. We can work it out. We can work it out. Life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. I have always thought that it's a crime, so I will ask you once again. Try to see it my way. Only time will tell if I am right or I am wrong. Wanna see it your way. There's a chance that we might fall apart before too long. We can work it out. We can work it out. Life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. I have always thought that it's a crime, so I will ask you once again. Try to see it my way. All the time will tell you if I am right or I am wrong. Wanna see it your way. There's a chance that we might fall apart before too long. We can work it out. We can work it out.
Right back through the middle. You said very aggressive, but also very good. 2001, Catalanotto hit .330, which was good for 5th best in the American League.
Softly hit, but a base hit.
And he threw the fastball right in the hands of Catalanotto.
It's a base hit. He's 3 for 3. Aaron can throw. Here's the throw to the plate. Not in time. And it is 4-2. Down ball base hit. Goodwood scores.
Joining us from his home in New York is former Toronto Blue Jay, former Texas Ranger. Frank, there's too many teams. Do you want to update me on how many we got all together throughout your illustrious career?
Five teams. Five teams. Yeah. So it's Detroit, Texas, Toronto, Milwaukee, and the New York Mets.
Wow. You're a New York guy. So was that a special feeling for you? Like, what, or were you a Yankee fan growing up? Because I know that you really can't be both, right? As a kid, you can't be a Yankee and a Met fan.
That's correct. So I grew up a Yankee fan. Always wanted to play for the Yankees. Obviously, that didn't happen, but to be able to finish my career in New York, it was awesome. You know, it was great to be able to sleep in my own bed, drive to work, and come back to my home and have my friends and family be able to come to the games. Didn't last that long. I was only there for a month and a half, but it was nice, and I was happy that I was able to finish it like that.
It's being able to go home and finish like that. Did you make your home every year in New York? Was it your off-season home?
Yes, absolutely. So I was born and raised on Long Island in Smithtown. We were lucky enough to build a house here, and my wife and I and my kids, we would, after the season, I would always come back to Long Island, and this is where we've always been. This is home for us. So, I loved the places that I played in, and I loved, I either rented there or bought a home there, but it would only be for the season, and then I'd come back to New York.
Frank, a lot of players, ex-players that we've had on the show have talked about that during their career, one of the hardest things for them was to maintain a family life and be able to continue their major league career because they're away from home so much. And it wasn't until their career is done that they actually learned how to connect with their family. Was that something that you were able to do, maybe that others had struggled with? Because by the sounds of it, you did make your family a priority, even if it meant, stretches during the off season. What was that like for you? How hard was that balance?
Well, it was tough. I mean, I remember when I came home after my playing career, I said to my wife, because I'm the type of guy that I like doing things. I like organizing, cleaning, doing things. And I have a wife and 4 girls, and they kind of ran stuff different when I wasn't home. So I came home, and after my first or second day there, I said, all right, guys, tomorrow we're going to clean the garage, and then we have to do this, and we're going to go in the shed and clean. And they go, no. We don't do that here. So it had kind of a little bit of a balance. And I had to say, all right, listen, I have to do it kind of their way, because for 8 months out of the year, they're here doing it their way. So it was a little bit different, like even though I was home for 4 months during the off season, I had to kind of get used to the way they did it, because that's a long time, not being around your family and not being at your house. However, like you said, family's always been important to me and a priority. So it was, coming back home during the season, during, say, All-Star break, or when we had some days off here or there, it allowed me to connect with the family, make sure that they were number one in my life, and that, baseball wasn't totally taking me down the wrong path.
Well, obviously, as you leave the game, you open up an awful lot more time to be with your family. But looking back at your time in the game, if you had to pinpoint one thing that you miss the most about it, does something spring to mind?
Yeah, for me, it's the camaraderie with the guys. Being in the clubhouse, and Barry can tell you, because Barry's been to some of the fantasy camps. I mean, just the guys in there just breaking each other's chops and just going on the road and being on the planes and the buses and those good times, going out to dinner with the guys. You don't get that back. You miss those things. And, of course, the competition on the field, we do miss, but I think more it's the camaraderie with the guys.
Have you been able to, oh, sorry, Barry.
No, go
ahead. Have you been able to find a substitute or something to, and you're still in the game, if I'm not mistaken, you're coaching?
Well, I was coaching a college team here on Long Island, and just recently, due to COVID, they had to shut down all athletics. So I'm out of a coaching job, and I'm waiting patiently, and hopefully something will open up here close to home, because I really, really loved coaching.
Well, Tom touches on the whole competitive thing. And again, this is something that always fascinates me with with athletes once their playing days are done is how do you fill that need to compete? Because to reach the level you did, you have to have such a high compete level that most of us in the world cannot relate to. And when it's done, you need to do something. R.A. Dickey's talked to us about playing pickup basketball in a men's league every week. Travis Snyder, before he got a minor league deal, would be cooking and tried to outcook everybody. Steve Delabar he started a landscape company and he wanted to outdo everybody's yards. What were you able to do to fill that void?
So very competitive guy. And that is another thing that I miss the most. And you'll never get it back. You'll never get what we had back, like that competitive nature. However, the one thing that I do, and I take it seriously, is I play racquetball. At LA Fitness, we have a group of guys that go down there and play racquetball. And, we play serious games. And when I get in there, I want to win. And I don't take it easy on anybody. And that's kind of my outlet as far as that competitiveness is. But I'm never going to get back, and I understand I'm never going to get back what it was like to be on a field and go against Mariano Rivera in the 9th inning at Yankee Stadium. Like, that's just, it's an unbelievable high and an unbelievable rush. And I understand I'll never have that back. And I miss that.
Talking about the rush, if, you've got to look back at your career tomorrow and what's the first memory? What's the best memory? I mean, for me as a fan, I can obviously remember that 6-hit game. But when you're looking back at your career, what's the thing that jumps into your head first? Your best memory?
For me, it's I have a few of them, and I'll list a couple of them. Getting to the major leagues, finally making it to the major leagues, was getting that call and being able to call my mom and dad and tell them that I made it. It was an unbelievable feeling for me. And then obviously my first major league hit, I'll remember that forever. It was at Tiger Stadium, and it was an RBI single. My dad was there. He was in the stands to see it. And then some things like the 6-for-6 game. I mean, when you have special games, they always stand out to you. You always remember them vividly. And that was a game that I'll never forget.
Frank, this day and age with social media, players can pretty much document everything they do every single day. And if they don't, fans do it. So it's easy to look back maybe 10 years from now for a player and know exactly what happened on what day. Did you do journals? Did you ever keep track of days, or do you have that kind of a memory where you can just recall things that you did in certain years?
Well, I always kept a book on pitchers. And I would list in there, what I did, how the pitcher pitched me, and what to look for next time. So that helped me out with remembering, certain things and certain days. But as a baseball player, as an athlete, you remember those good days that you have. You remember them, vividly. I remember every single year, if somebody says, "Hey, do you remember when you got a hit off of so and so and won the game?" I know exactly when it was, what year it was, what month it was, the whole situation. So whenever we kind of reminisce about these things, it brings back those memories, and it's great to think about those things.
It always amazed me about athletes, and I used to cover some golf too. And you talk to a golfer after they just played, 4 rounds, and they could take you through every single shot they had. And it always blew my mind. And I find baseball players are very much the same. I mean, if I asked you about that 6-for-6 day, you probably have things in your memory where you remember what pitchers you were facing, what pitch you hit for the hits that you got. What is it about athletes that just have an ability to retain things, other than, of course, time of day? Because I know most ball players have a hard time when you say, "We're going to do an interview at 2:00. Well, you were great, by the way. You were great. But I've run into this many times.
Yeah. I think it's just the focus. In order to be at the top of your game, you have to be focused. And you have to be in the moment. And if you're in the moment, if you're focused, I feel like you're just going to remember things. And it's funny that you say that about a golfer that remembers every shot. I remember guys asking me saying, "Hey, did you ever face this guy?" You know, a pitcher we were facing that night, and maybe I faced him 2 or 3 months ago. I could rattle off the whole sequence that he threw me in all 3 or 4 at bats I faced him. Right? You know, no changeup. Then he threw me a 1-1 fastball inside. So it's funny how we do that, but I think, like I said, when you're focused and you care about your profession and you care about, you know, being having that advantage and having that edge, I think you just kind of lock in and remember those things.
You know, we touched on pitchers that you faced. Mariano Rivera came up. With a memory like that, looking back, is there one guy that owned you?
Well, there were more than one guy. Pedro Martinez, he owned me like you wouldn't believe. You know, I probably faced him 30 times and maybe only got 2 or 3 hits. He seemed to just, he was so good. He kind of could read my body language. Like if I was looking for a fastball, he would throw me a changeup. And if I was looking for a changeup, he would throw me a fastball. He was just so good at placing the ball where he wanted. And whenever I would take a swing and miss, it would set me up ultimately for what, you know, he was going to, he knew exactly what he should throw next. And that's what makes him one of the best ever, is not only did he have great stuff, but he was so smart on the mound.
Frank, you had to not only play mind games with the pitcher, but you're also playing mind games with yourself in some ways. And as you said, you're aware of certain pitchers who owned you. You're aware of certain pitchers who you owned. Now, if you're going up to the plate and you know that you've got great success against a pitcher, your confidence level shoots up. How do you avoid the opposite, the negative of when you go in to face someone that has owned you, to not let it get into your head that, oh, crap, I can't get a hit off this guy?
Well, it's tough. And if anyone tells you that they don't think about it, they're lying to you. If a guy owns you, you know, you hope you show up and your name's not in the lineup. But if you are in the lineup, you know, you try to, what I always did was I would ask other left-handed hitters. You know, in Toronto, I would always ask Carlos, and there were some other guys, Koski and some other guys I would go up to and just say, hey, listen, this guy is giving me a tough time. And my approach hasn't been working. What do you do to be successful? And maybe I can kind of abandon my game plan because it hasn't been working, and kind of adopt one of those guys' game plans. And at least, if nothing else, it would make me a little more confident knowing that, hey, this guy's had success and this is what he does, so let me try that. I know that doing the same thing that I was doing and continuing to not have success wasn't going to work, so I might as well try something different. And like I said, sometimes it just helped me a little bit mentally.
I love that you talk about mindset and just kind of sharing those tips between players. Your time here in Toronto was a pretty tumultuous time. You know, there were some good years, there were some bad years, there were some questionable uniforms.
Yes.
But there were some amazing players too. And you know what? The answer to this question doesn't have to be from Toronto, but was there a player in your career whose perspective helped you a great deal and who kind of took you under their wing and helped you out?
Yeah, I had a couple early in my career in Detroit with the Tigers. Bobby Higginson, he took me under his wing. And again, he was a left-handed hitter. So he was somebody that I could go to ask questions. What is he looking for in this situation? In Toronto, Carlos Delgado was a guy that I loved talking about. Carlos was another guy that kept a book on pitchers like myself. So we could kind of compare notes, you know, before the game, half hour before the game, I'd go over to Carlos's locker and just say, hey, this is what I've got on this guy. What do you have on him? And hopefully it would match up and we can say, okay, this is what we're going to look for tonight. He's going to throw us changeups in 1-0 counts or whatever the case may be. So Carlos is, you know, such a smart guy when it comes to approach at the plate. So he was a guy for me that I loved talking hitting with.
You know, every time I hear the name Bobby Higginson, great player, love the guy, but there's a horrible memory that always comes up, and that is against the Toronto Blue Jays. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Roy Halladay had what would have been just a remarkable start to his career, and Higginson ruins his no-hitter with a home run, two outs in the ninth inning. Man, oh man. And it just makes me think of Roy and, you know, what Doc had to deal with mentally once his career was done. And I had a chance to talk to him just maybe 2 months before he passed away. And, you know, he seemed like he was looking forward to the future, but, you know, you don't know about people unless you're right inside their circle. Can you, from the outside, can you understand why it is such a struggle for so many athletes once their career is over? And like you said, you had all your kind of ducks in a line and you made sure that you spent time with the family, but can you relate to the struggles mentally that players can have when the career's done?
I have a tough time relating to that because I've had such a good support system with my family, my mom and my dad and my wife and my kids. I do know that a lot of players struggle when they retire. I'm in a group, a Facebook group of former major league and minor league players, and there's 15, 16,000 people in there. And a lot of the times guys are saying like, what I'm struggling, what should I do? And it surprises me, but you know, some guy, you know, a lot of times we're just looked at as baseball players, almost like not humans, just kind of like robots and
superheroes in some eyes.
Right. And when that's taken away, you know, people feel like, oh man, what's my self-worth now? Everyone loved me as a baseball player. Now I'm not a baseball player. So that must be it. But I do have a tough time understanding that just because I'm so blessed and fortunate to have such a great support system. And, you know, family has always come first in my life. My mom and dad raised me the right way and raised me to have family first. So I know it is a big issue out there. And obviously I know Doc dealt with that. And at the time, you know, I don't know if any of us really knew what he was going through. And it's such a shame and such a terrible thing for Roy and for his family. But, you know, it might be nice if there were, when you are done with your playing career, if there was somewhere that maybe Major League Baseball has a group or something where you can go and kind of talk about this to kind of ease some of those struggles.
It's funny that you bring that up. I spent, you know, the better part of 3 years of my life dealing with severe mental illness. And part of that journey, I was working. First, I started going to support groups, and then I got certified as a counselor. And so I started working in these support groups. And people would ask me if there's a type of person that needs a mental health support group. And I said, no, there's no commonalities between people, young, old, men, women. The one commonality, the one that every group had a few, were newly retired people. And, you know, it didn't matter what industry they were from, but they were people whose lives had changed fundamentally. And, right. and yeah, without the support system that, you know, that you're describing, what seems like a simple transition for people can be really, really difficult. Do you think does Major League Baseball touch on that transition period at all? Or is it something that they're hands off? It's when you're done and good luck?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, you know, I've been out of the game for about 11 years now. Maybe things have changed. When I was there, I don't remember them ever touching on that. I hope at this point there is something, but I'm not sure about that. I think it would be very, you know, beneficial for a lot of guys.
Frank, like you, and this is probably the only athletic thing I have in common with you. I'm a shorter guy. I'm 5'7", and I knew that, you know, becoming a baseball player was going to be difficult because when you're my size, you have more challenges that taller people don't have. I also looked up to players like Pete Rose and Tony Gwynn. I always loved, you know, the small players. Were there, like, you know, as a kid growing up, were there guys that you looked up to and said, you know what, if he can make it, you know, and he's not 6'2", I can definitely do it too?
Well, for me, it was my favorite player was Don Mattingly. Mm-hmm. Not a huge guy, you know, maybe my size, maybe 5'11", but that's one of my role models because not only was he a left-handed hitter, and I would copy his swing he would change his swing from time to time, and I would copy it every time he changed it. But when I would go to Yankee Stadium and watch him, he was always out there signing autographs for the kids, doing great things in the community, going to hospitals to see the kids and stuff like that. And I just thought he was a great guy and a great player. And, obviously he had all the talent in the world. He was a great hitter. So maybe this isn't a good comparison, but for me, he was a guy that I always looked up to.
You mentioned being a left-handed hitter. We always hear about lefty versus lefty and how tough that is for left-handed hitters. Righty versus righty, not so much. I mean, I'm sure it's still easier for a right-handed hitter to face a lefty. But what is it? What is it about being a left-handed batter, standing at the plate with a left-handed pitcher? What adds to that challenge for you?
For me, it was lack of opportunities, lack of at-bats. A lot of times when you get to the major leagues, they say, oh, lefty against lefty, we're going to pinch hit and get a righty in there. So I feel like in the minor leagues, I felt like I hit lefties pretty good because they didn't, I didn't get pinch hit for it. And if a lefty was starting, I was still in the lineup. So, a lot of lefties seem to drop down 3/4, don't throw over the top. The lefties that throw right over the top were easier to see. But the lefties that came from the side, they were a little more difficult. It felt like it was coming from behind you. But for me, I just think it was getting those repetitions. And, there are a lot of guys in the league now that, star players that hit lefties just as well as they hit righties. So I wish I would have had more of an opportunity to play against lefties, but it wasn't meant to be.
What we don't see a lot of anymore, Frank, are the guys that are spray hitters, guys that hit 300, that will take pitches, and go the other way. It's all about, the big prize, about hitting the big home run, about pulling the ball. We see these unbelievable exaggerated shifts, which just make me shake my head. Is this something that you think that needs to start back again in the grassroots and start teaching kids that it's not just home runs? It's not just about pulling the ball and, your rate of whatever they call it now with the sabermetrics, right? Like, do guys just need to go back to going with pitches, and if it means going the other way, you go the other way, and it means you get a single instead of a home run, then so be it?
That's what I think. I mean, I don't like the way the game's being played nowadays. I loved it when you and I were growing up. The way that guys would hit, and there was bunting, there was hitting the other way, there was hit and runs, hit behind the runner. It seems like nowadays the game isn't as exciting because it's either a strikeout or a home run, and I don't enjoy watching it like I used to, and I think it would be great if we can get back to trying to make contact, putting the ball in play, making the defense make a play on you, and I think eventually we will, because I don't think Major League Baseball looks good lately with how you check out some of these stats and the strikeouts are way up. I understand the home runs are up, but for me, that's not the way I was taught to play the game, and I don't like really watching it.
As a left-handed hitter, if you were to step up to the plate and you saw the entire infield over on the right side of the diamond, rather than going, oh crap, I've got nowhere to hit the ball, would you be salivating and going, oh my God, what are they doing? They've given me the whole diamond to hit the ball.
Barry, I say that all the time. I watch the game and I'm just like, why wouldn't they just try to hit the ball the other way? If you hit the ball, to left field or down the line, it's an easy double. All you have to do, even if you bunt, I mean, it's a free hit. But these guys, they don't want to change, the way they hit. They think, hey, if I hit the ball in the air, I can hit it out of the ballpark. Instead of, my thought would be, all right, there's 4 guys on the right side of the infield. I'm not going to get it by them. Why not just try to hit the ball the other way? I don't know why the game has changed so much like that.
Is there a part of it you think that's driven by, because the specialization in baseball and that hyper focus on launch angle and bat speed, swing speed, but the same thing's happening with pitchers as well. with spin rate and with velocity, and velocity is going, through the roof over the last 10 years. Do you think that that's driving the change in approach in batters, rather than just specialized swings, that it's actually them trying to kind of accommodate the faster pitches coming?
No, I honestly, I don't. I mean, I think that, whether a guy's throwing 93 or whether he's throwing 100, I would have the same approach. And I think right now we're too focused on all these different numbers and sabermetrics, and instead of the way baseball was for 150 years, and now all of a sudden they're trying to rewrite the game and try to change things up. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me. But like I said, I think it will come back, and I hope it will come back.
To our 4 Out of the Park insiders we've invited on, we'll be bringing you on in just a second. If you have a question for Frank, get it ready. If you don't have one, think of one, because this is your opportunity to talk to Frank in just a couple minutes. Kat, you talk like you could be a manager. Was that ever anything? Is it something that's somewhere deep in your mind you're thinking maybe one day I'd like to put the uniform back on and actually manage a major league team?
Maybe once my girls are old enough and they're out of the house, I may want to do that. And the only reason I say that is because I didn't realize that I would love coaching as much as I did coaching the college team. I wasn't sure if I wanted to take the job, and I said, you know what, I'll give it a try. And I absolutely loved it. And I felt like I had a lot of knowledge and a lot of information to share with these kids. And not only the mechanics of the game, the mechanics of hitting and fielding, but more the mental part of the game. I was able to tell these kids, that were 18, 19 years old, stuff that I learned at the major league level. So they were learning it at a young age. And I really fell in love with it. I loved managing the game and trying to figure out when to hit and run and when to steal and when to bunt. And so absolutely, I feel like at some point here in the next few years, I'd probably like to get back into, professional baseball.
All right. Well, Frank, I tell you what, you live in a home and you're surrounded by women. So we figured we would invite a number of them to join us here on the show. So we're going to surround you with them again. We do have one gentleman who's going to join us as well. But joining us, we have Sue, who's going to be with us here. I'm just going to get everybody else activated so they can join you as well. We have Jody, we have Fiona, and then we have John. And
all right.
For the first time on our show, Frank, we actually have a married couple joining us, because John and Sue are married, and but due to COVID, they're kind of like on separate Zooms here. So everybody, say hello to Frank Catalanotto, and we'll work our way through. And Sue, let's start with you. If you have a question or anything you'd like to say to Frank.
Hi, sure. Hi, Frank. You look great.
Thank you.
Just one or two things. You mentioned your teams you played for, but didn't you play for Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic?
I did.
What was that like?
That was amazing. It was so much fun because half of the team was kids from Italy, and half of the team was Italian Americans, guys that played in the minor leagues or major leagues. And to be around those kids from Italy was so special. They're so passionate about the game of baseball, and they just wanted to suck up all of our knowledge. Every time myself and either Mike Piazza or Frank Menachino, one of the major league players, were just talking, on the bench, a whole bunch of them would start to gather around and just listen to what we were saying. And they always asked us to come help them with their hitting and stuff like that. So it was special because of the fact that those guys loved the game so much. But it was also great because I got to go to Italy a few times and help instruct over there. I think the World Baseball Classic is so good for the game. It's unfortunate that we're not able to have it this year because of COVID, but I look forward to participating in the next one.
If I'm not mistaken, Frank. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. If I'm not mistaken, you were representing Italy at the World Baseball Classic, playing that in Toronto that year, correct?
That's right. It was 2009.
And what an incredible turnout we had, because we have such a great Italian community here. What did that feel like for you? What were your memories of being in Toronto, representing Italy, and just being surrounded by so many huge Italy fans and people from Italy?
It was awesome because I was, at the time, I was with the Texas Rangers. It was after my time with Toronto. And going back there, I wasn't sure what kind of a turnout there would be. I think we played maybe Puerto Rico or the Venezuela, the first game. And it was so nice when they announced my name. There were so many fans there and they were all going crazy. So it was so nice that the Toronto fans showed me, that appreciation, that support. And, all my teammates were very impressed, that I got such an ovation.
All right, Jody, say hello to Frank. Frank, this is Jody. If you have a question, Jody, go for it.
For sure. Hi, Frank. I actually met you with my son and my best friend a few years ago at Winterfest. So I just remember that. I wanted to say hey. So the little guy is almost 12 now and missing baseball very much with COVID. Last night I told him that the Jays' first spring training game is on Sunday, and he said, "Mommy, close your ears." And so I did this, and then he screamed at the top of his lungs.
I love it.
We will be watching baseball on Sunday for sure. With that in mind, you said you've got 4 girls. Are they playing baseball?
So my oldest is 22. She played softball all the way through high school and decided in college she wanted to play volleyball instead. She was both a softball player and a volleyball player and chose volleyball. My other girls are dancers or volleyball players. So they didn't follow her footsteps or my footsteps, but it was fun watching my oldest play softball for so long.
What about the other girls?
The other girls play my 16-year-old is a dancer. And then my 14-year-old and 12-year-old both play volleyball.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Tom, did you have something you wanted to add in there?
Well, it's going back to the previous question about, playing on Team Italy in Toronto and what an amazing experience. But I got to ask, for someone from New York playing on Team Italy, is there anywhere in Toronto you took those guys out for pizza, or did you just avoid pizza altogether?
I avoided pizza. You know what I mean? Listen, I'm kind of a snob when it comes to pizza. I love my New York pizza. Don't get me wrong. I got some good pizza there in Toronto, but even when I went to Italy, they tried to show off, how good their pizza was there in Italy. And I didn't like it. I was used to New York pizza, and I was like, I placated them, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great, but New York pizza is where it's at.
Okay, so hopefully a time is going to come where we're going to be able to go back to New York City. And I have had tons of pizza in New York, some of it incredible, some of it okay. I find that some of the cheaper places are some of the best places. But as an expert, Frank, where should we go? If we want the best pizza in New York City, where do we go? There is Frank Catalanotto, and I'm going to make a little admission here, Thomas.
Okay.
I asked him in the conversation about not being, a taller guy in the game. For some reason, I always thought that he was like Marcus Stroman height, like 5'8", maybe 5'9". But he told us he's 5'11", which is very close to 6 feet tall. So he's actually taller than I thought he was. I just always imagined him as a shorter dude.
Well, you know what? I guess for someone like yourself, Barry, that, you kind of tend to put the whole world into 2 categories. All the people that are taller than you and the couple that you find that are shorter.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Fair enough. Coming up on next week's show, as we mentioned, former Toronto Blue Jays GM, former LA Dodgers sort of GM, and now the current GM of the Atlanta Braves, Alex Anthopoulos. We get into a lot of really cool conversations, everything from his previous career that never was, which is very common to something you and I enjoy. And that's all we're
Yep.
going to say, including some video that you will see, folks, that will blow your mind. If you have, and honestly, Tom, when I last checked the number of views of it, it's not very many, meaning a lot of people have never seen this. So we're going to show them this. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about his exit from Toronto and maybe some of the truth as to what actually went down and why he made the deals he made. And also, he interacts with, I believe, 5 or 6 of our OTP insiders. So every week we're increasing the number that we're allowing in this Zoom room. If you want to be a part of this, if you want to interact, and we've got Jason Fraser we're going to be talking to this coming Friday. And we're also, at some point over the next week or two, we've got Devin Travis. So every week we're going to have someone who is either a current Blue Jay, which is a little harder now than it used to be because of COVID and what's going on, or a former Blue Jay. And it'll give you an opportunity to get into the Zoom with these guys and ask questions. Where else can you do that, Tom?
Yeah, and every week as we're figuring out how to facilitate these conversations, and let's face it, like our insiders, the people that have been sitting on them, they've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us. They've been rolling with the punches. They've been asking better questions than we do
all the time.
This week with Alex, same thing. And it's something that I know that people are really, really enjoying. And for you guys out there that haven't got in on one of these yet, jump on in. The water's warm, and we're having an awful lot of fun on these interviews.
How can people get involved in this, Thomas?
Patreon.com. Yeah.
Love it.
Patreon.com/Outta The Park. And, for a cup of coffee a month, you can sit in and talk and ask the hard questions.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right, Thomas, as always, it is a pleasure. And, yes, you may have a few inches on me, maybe about a foot on me, but at least I, in my life, have never had to duck. And you cannot say the same. So there you go, on you. Thank you very much, folks, for listening and watching and making us a part of your week.